The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the crystalline conference table. Ambassador Zethkar of the Velthri Empire slammed his four-armed fist against the surface, causing ripples of light to spread across its translucent structure. "Enough delays!" His voice boomed through the universal translators. The humans have ignored 17 diplomatic warnings. They continue to expand into contested territories, claiming planets that rightfully belong to established civilizations. Their aggressive colonization must be stopped. Murmurs of agreement echoed from various delegates. The insectoid Krix representative clicked her mandibles in approval, while the gas-dwelling Nethals pulsed their bioluminescent forms in synchronized patterns of support. Even the normally peaceful Harmonians swayed their crystalline bodies in what could only be interpreted as reluctant agreement. Chancellor Vexithol, the ancient leader of the council, raised his elongated hand for silence. His species, the Architects, had founded the Galactic Council 3,000 years ago, establishing the laws that governed interstellar relations. His weathered face showed the weight of countless diplomatic crises. "The human delegation has been summoned," he announced, his voice carrying the authority of millennia. "They will arrive within the solar cycle to answer for their actions. And if they refuse to comply with our demands?" asked General Mordek of the Siege Worlds, his scarred hide bearing the marks of countless battles. "If they continue their reckless expansion?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the implications. In the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council, only twice had they been forced to declare total war against a species that refused to acknowledge galactic law. Both times the offending civilizations had been completely eradicated within months. "Then we follow the ancient protocols," Chancellor Vexthul replied solemnly. "Total war has been declared against the aggressive and barbaric before. The galaxy remembers the fate of the Devourers and the Iron Hegemony. The human ship Endeavor dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system 3 days later. It was a modest vessel compared to the massive dreadnoughts and bioships surrounding the Council station, yet something about its simple, functional design seemed to unnerve the waiting fleet commanders. The humans had been invited to bring an escort, but they arrived with only their single diplomatic vessel. Captain Sarah Chen stepped through the airlock with only 2 companions, Dr. Marcus Webb, a historian and cultural specialist, and Commander James Liu, a military attaché. They walked through the station corridors with calm confidence, seemingly unimpressed by the towering architecture or the dozens of alien species they passed. The council chamber fell silent as the human delegation entered. Ambassador Chen stood barely 2 meters tall, average by human standards, yet her presence seemed to fill the enormous space. Her dark eyes swept across the assembled representatives with the calculating gaze of someone accustomed to high-stakes negotiations. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice clear and steady through the translators. "We have come to address your concerns regarding human expansion into what you term contested territories." Zethkar leaned forward aggressively. "Your people have established colonies on 47 worlds within the past decade, ignoring all territorial claims and diplomatic protests. You act as if the galaxy belongs to you alone." Captain Chen nodded calmly. "We have established settlements on 47 uninhabited worlds with suitable conditions for human life. Each world was thoroughly surveyed and confirmed to be devoid of intelligent life or active territorial claims recognized under your own galactic accords." "Lies," spat General Mordek. "Those worlds fall within our traditional hunting grounds. The siege worlds have hunted those systems for generations. Hunting grounds are not territorial claims under galactic law." Dr. Webb interjected, consulting his datapad. "Article 47 of the Galactic Accords clearly states that territorial sovereignty requires permanent settlements, resource extraction operations, or formal registration with the Council. Random hunting expeditions do not constitute valid claims." The Krix representative's antennae twitched in annoyance. "Your species arrives in this galaxy and immediately begins carving out an empire. You show no respect for established civilizations or traditional boundaries." Captain Chen's expression remained neutral. "We have respected all established civilizations. We have honored all legitimate territorial boundaries. We have opened trade relations with 17 species and established mutual defense pacts with 6 others. Our expansion has been entirely within the bounds of galactic law. Your interpretation of the law is convenient," Chancellor Vexthul observed. But law aside, your rapid expansion shows a disturbing pattern of aggression. In 50 years, humanity has grown from a single world species to controlling over 200 systems. Such rapid militaristic expansion has historically led to galactic conflict. The human delegation exchanged glances. Captain Chen straightened, her diplomatic composure taking on a harder edge. Chancellor, with respect, you seem to misunderstand both our methods and our motivations. Human expansion is driven by necessity, not conquest. Our home world became overcrowded centuries ago. We expand to survive, not to dominate. All aggressive species claim defensive motivations, General Mordak growled. The Iron Hegemony made similar arguments before they began their campaign of galactic conquest. Your pattern is identical. Rapid expansion, military buildup, claims of defensive necessity. Dr. Webb stepped forward, his scholarly demeanor suddenly sharp with indignation. General, you compare us to the Iron Hegemony? Did you study their expansion pattern at all? Of course. Standard military doctrine requires knowledge of historical aggressive campaigns, and then, the Iron Hegemony conquered 40 systems in their first decade by enslaving or exterminating the native populations. They strip-mined entire worlds and used slave labor to build their war machine. They attacked established colonies and declared war on 3 different species in their first 20 years. Webb's voice rose with controlled anger. In 50 years of expansion, humanity has not fired a single shot in aggression. We have not enslaved a single being. We have not conquered a single inhabited world. We have not started a single war. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Chen seized the moment. Honored Council, you invite us here to threaten us with total war because we dare to seek new homes for our growing population on empty worlds. You compare us to genocidal empires because we build cities instead of strip mines, because we establish trade routes instead of slave camps. Her voice carried quiet steel. You condemn us for expansion while ignoring the fact that in half a century of growth, we have harmed no one, threatened no one, and conquered nothing. Chancellor Vexthal's ancient eyes narrowed. Words are easily spoken, human, but patterns do not lie. Your species' rapid militarization concerns us greatly. Captain Chen smiled grimly. Our militarization concerns you? Chancellor, I think it's time you learned exactly what you're threatening to go to war with. Dr. Webb activated his holographic projector, and the chamber's lights dimmed as a 3-dimensional star map appeared above the conference table. Blue dots marked human colonies, while different colors indicated the territories of various council species. Before we discuss militarization, Dr. Webb began, his academic tone cutting through the tension, let me provide some context about human history that might help explain our current actions. The star map shifted, zooming in on a single yellow star with a small blue-green world orbiting it. This is Earth, our home world. For most of our recorded history, humans lived on this single planet, divided into thousands of competing tribes, city-states, and nations. General Mordak leaned back in his chair. Primitive territorial disputes are common among developing species. What relevance does this have? The relevance, General, is scale. The display changed, showing a timeline stretching back several millennia. In our recorded history alone, humans have fought over 50,000 wars. Not conflicts or skirmishes, actual wars. Some lasted decades. Some engulfed entire continents. The Harmonian's crystalline forms pulsed with distress at the number. Ambassador Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed as he processed the information. Dr. Webb continued, his voice growing more intense. The deadliest war in our history killed over 70 million humans in just 6 years. That's more casualties than the total population of most council species. And that wasn't even our worst conflict in terms of percentage of population killed. Barbaric, whispered the Crick's representative. How did your species survive such violence? We adapted, Captain Chen replied simply. We learned. We evolved. But Dr. Webb's point stands. We come from a world where conflict was constant, where survival meant being prepared for warfare on a scale you cannot imagine. The hologram shifted again, showing Earth's surface covered in thousands of red dots. Each of these represents a major battlefield from human history. Some of our cities have been destroyed and rebuilt dozens of times. We have weapons in our museums that could sterilize entire continents. Chancellor Vexthal's expression grew troubled. If your species is so naturally violent, why should we believe your peaceful expansion will continue? Dr. Webb smiled grimly. Because we learned the most important lesson any species can learn. We learned the true cost of war. The display changed to show images of devastated cities, of weapons that could split atoms, of technologies that could poison entire worlds. 3 centuries ago, we developed weapons capable of destroying all life on Earth multiple times over. We came within minutes of using them. But you didn't, observed the Nethel representative, their bioluminescent form pulsing with confused colors. No, we didn't. Because we realized that our greatest enemy wasn't each other. It was our own capacity for self-destruction. So we made a choice that no other species in galactic history has made. Dr. Webb paused, letting the weight of his words settle. We turned all that aggression, all that competitive drive, all that warlike energy toward a single common goal, reaching the stars. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. Several representatives leaned forward, suddenly more interested than hostile. Commander Liu stepped forward for the first time. Every human military unit, every warship, every soldier serves under a single unified command structure. We ended wars on Earth not through peace treaties or diplomatic agreements, but by redirecting our entire species toward expansion and exploration. Impossible, General Mordak declared. No species unifies that quickly. It takes millennia to overcome tribal instincts. It takes a shared threat, Captain Chen corrected. When we realized we could destroy ourselves, unity became a matter of survival. Our military isn't designed to conquer other species, General. It's designed to protect human colonies from threats while we spread across the galaxy fast enough to ensure our species' survival. Dr. Webb manipulated the hologram again, showing the rapid expansion of human settlements. We don't just expand for resources or territory. We expand because we learned that putting all our people on one world or even in one system makes us vulnerable to extinction. Every new colony is insurance against species-wide catastrophe. But your rapid militarization, Ambassador Zethkar began, is defensive, Commander Liu interrupted. Look at our ship designs, our weapon patterns, our strategic deployments. Every human military asset is positioned to protect colonies, not to attack other species. We build fast, light vessels designed for patrol and protection, not massive dreadnoughts built for conquest. The Crix representative clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Your expansion pattern is indeed different from historical aggressive species. But your speed still concerns us. No peaceful species expands so rapidly. Captain Chen's expression hardened. No peaceful species comes from a world where global warfare was a constant threat. We expand rapidly because we have the organizational structures, the industrial capacity, and the driving motivation that only comes from millennia of conflict. Think about it, Dr. Webb added, manipulating the display to show comparative expansion rates. The iron hegemony you mentioned expanded through conquest. They had to fight for every system, subdue every population, establish control through force. That's slow, expensive, and brutal. We expand through colonization of empty worlds. We can terraform a planet faster than most species can win a single major battle. The chamber fell silent as the implication sank in. Chancellor Vexthul's ancient mind processed the information carefully. You're saying your species' warlike nature actually makes you more peaceful? He asked slowly. We're saying our warlike nature taught us the futility of war, Captain Chen replied. We learned that the energy spent fighting each other could be better spent ensuring our survival as a species. Every human knows that our greatest victories came not from defeating enemies, but from overcoming challenges that threatened our existence. Dr. Webb nodded enthusiastically. Climate change, resource depletion, overpopulation, nuclear weapons, genetic plagues. We've faced extinction-level threats dozens of times. Each time, we survived by working together and pushing beyond our previous limitations. Your expansion isn't aggression, the Harmonian representative observed. Their crystalline form shifting to a contemplative blue. It's adaptation. Exactly. Captain Chen gestured to the star map showing human colonies. We don't expand to conquer. We expand to survive. We don't militarize to attack. We militarize to protect what we've built. General Mordak studied the tactical displays with professional interest. Your defensive formations are indeed optimized for protection rather than aggression. But what happens when you run out of empty worlds to colonize? The human delegation exchanged glances. Commander Liu cleared his throat. General, our surveys indicate there are over 10,000 potentially habitable worlds within our current expansion zone alone. At our current growth rate, it would take us over 2,000 years to settle them all. By then, he paused, choosing his words carefully. By then, we hope to have developed the technology to reach other galaxies. The silence that followed was deafening. The revelation about humanity's intergalactic ambitions sent shockwaves through the council chamber. Several representatives began speaking at once, their translations creating a cacophony of concern, disbelief, and growing alarm. Ambassador Zethkar rose from his seat, his forearms gesturing dramatically. You speak of leaving the galaxy as if it's a routine matter. No species has ever achieved such technology. The energy requirements alone would be astronomical. Dr. Webb calmly adjusted his holographic display, bringing up complex mathematical equations and theoretical physics models. We're still in the early theoretical stages, but our scientists believe it's achievable within 5 centuries. We've already made significant breakthroughs in exotic matter manipulation and dimensional folding. Chancellor Vexthul's ancient eyes studied the equations with growing unease. As an architect, his species had the most advanced understanding of physics in the known galaxy, and what he saw disturbed him greatly. These theories, some of them parallel our own most classified research. How did humans develop such advanced concepts in mere centuries? Captain Chen smiled without humor. Because necessity is the mother of invention, and humans have always been very good at becoming necessary. When we realized our galaxy has finite resources and limited space, we started working on alternatives. But the implications, the Nethel representative pulsed in agitated patterns. If humans can traverse intergalactic distances, what prevents them from returning with military force? Commander Liu stepped forward, his expression serious. The same thing that prevents us from conquering this galaxy now, it serves no purpose. Why would we return to wage war when we could simply find empty galaxies to settle? War is expensive, destructive, and inefficient. Exploration and colonization achieve our goals with far fewer resources. General Mordak's scarred features showed deep skepticism. You expect us to believe that a species capable of intergalactic travel would have no interest in galactic domination? General, Dr. Webb interjected, let me put this in perspective. Do you know how many planets exist in the Andromeda galaxy alone? The general's expression showed he didn't appreciate the academic tone, but he answered, approximately 1 trillion worlds. And how many of those are potentially habitable by oxygen-breathing species? Current estimates suggest around 10 billion. Dr. Webb nodded. 10 billion empty worlds in just one galaxy. If humans could reach Andromeda, why would we return here to fight over the few hundred worlds currently disputed in this galaxy? It would be like fighting over a single grain of sand when there's an entire beach waiting for us. The logic was undeniable, but it created new concerns. The Crix representative's antennae twitched nervously. If humans possess such advanced theoretical knowledge, what other technologies have you developed that we should know about? Captain Chen exchanged glances with her colleagues. That's a complicated question. Uncomplicated, Chancellor Vexthul demanded, his voice carrying the full authority of his office. Dr. Webb manipulated his display again, showing a timeline of human technological development. Human technological advancement follows a unique pattern compared to other species. Most civilizations develop steadily over millennia. Humans experience sudden accelerations during periods of crisis or competition. The display showed dramatic leaps in human capability during their various wars, with particularly steep increases during their world wars and space race periods. We developed powered flight, nuclear energy, computers, space travel, and genetic engineering all within a single century. Most species take 5 to 10 times longer to achieve similar breakthroughs. Why? Asked the Harmonian representative, genuinely curious. Competition and desperation, Commander Liu answered bluntly. When humans compete against each other, we innovate at incredible rates. When we face extinction, we surpass our own limitations. The combination of both has driven technological advancement at speeds that apparently seem impossible to other species. Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward intently. What technologies do humans currently possess that might be considered concerning? By galactic standards? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Captain Chen looked around the chamber, studying each representative carefully before responding. We possess theoretical knowledge for weapons that could destabilize stars. We have defensive technologies that could make planets uninhabitable for millennia. We've developed manufacturing processes that could strip mine entire systems in decades rather than centuries. She paused, watching the growing alarm in their faces. We've also developed the wisdom not to use any of them. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. General Mordak slammed his fist on the table. You admit to possessing weapons of mass destruction on an unprecedented scale. We admit to possessing the knowledge, Dr. Webb corrected. The same knowledge that led us to reject such weapons as counterproductive. When you can destroy solar systems, you quickly realize that such power is meaningless if it makes the galaxy uninhabitable. Chancellor Vexthul raised his hand for silence, his expression deeply troubled. These capabilities you describe, they far exceed anything in our current understanding. How do we know humans won't eventually use them? Captain Chen's expression grew serious. Because we already did. The silence that followed was absolute. Every representative stared at the human delegation in shock. Not star-killing weapons, Captain Chen continued quickly, but on Earth we used the most destructive weapons we could create. We poisoned our own atmosphere, contaminated vast regions with radioactive waste, and came within minutes of rendering our world uninhabitable. We learned through direct experience that ultimate weapons are ultimately useless. Dr. Webb nodded grimly. Human philosophy regarding advanced weapons is simple. If you can destroy everything, you've gained nothing worth having. Our expansion is driven by the desire to preserve and spread life, not to end it. But the threat remains, General Mordak insisted. A species with such capabilities could change their philosophy. Commander Liu's expression hardened. General, are you suggesting we should limit our scientific development to make other species comfortable? Should we deliberately remain inferior to reassure you? That's not what I'm suggesting, isn't it? You're essentially asking us to prove our peaceful intentions by accepting technological inferiority. Liu's voice carried a dangerous edge. That's exactly the kind of thinking that leads to the wars you claim to want to prevent. The Crick's representative clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. The humans raise a valid point. We cannot demand they limit their advancement to address our fears. But we can demand transparency, Chancellor Vexthul declared. If humanity possesses technologies that could threaten galactic stability, the Council has a right to know. Captain Chen stood straighter, her diplomatic composure taking on a military bearing. Chancellor, with respect, what gives the Council the right to demand anything from a sovereign species? We've broken no laws, threatened no one, and harmed no one. Yet you invite us here to justify our existence and defend our advancement. The safety of the galaxy. The safety of the galaxy is not improved by forcing humans to reveal military secrets to potential enemies, Commander Liu interrupted. Especially when those demanding transparency have already threatened us with total war. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Chancellor Vexthul's expression showed he understood the paradox. They were demanding trust from a species they had just threatened to destroy. The tension in the chamber reached a breaking point as the logical contradiction of the Council's position became clear. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others began whispering among themselves in their native languages. Ambassador Zethkar attempted to regain control of the situation. The Council's concerns are legitimate. No species in galactic history has developed so rapidly while maintaining such secretive military capabilities. Secretive? Dr. Webb's academic composure cracked slightly. We've been completely transparent about our expansion, our motivations, and our general capabilities. We've offered detailed explanations of our history and philosophy. What more do you want? Technical specifications, General Mordak stated bluntly. Weapons yields, defensive capabilities, production capacities. Real military intelligence, Commander Liu laughed, a sound devoid of humor. General, you just threatened my species with extinction and now you want us to provide you with detailed intelligence about our defenses? Do you realize how that sounds? It sounds like a reasonable request for galactic security, the general replied stubbornly. It sounds like reconnaissance for a planned attack, Liu shot back. Chancellor Vexthul intervened before the exchange could escalate further. Perhaps we should approach this differently. What would humanity require to feel secure in sharing such information? Captain Chen considered the question carefully. Mutual disclosure. If the Council wants transparency about human capabilities, then humanity deserves the same transparency about Council military assets. The chamber erupted in protests. Ambassador Zethkar's forearms waved dismissively. The Council species have proven our peaceful intentions through thousands of years of cooperation. Have you? Dr. Webb challenged, pulling up historical data on his display. The Val-3 Empire has fought 17 border wars in the past 5 centuries. The siege worlds maintain the largest military fleet in the galaxy, despite having no external threats. The Crix Collective operates intelligence networks that span dozens of systems. Those are defensive measures. The Crix representative protested. So are ours, Captain Chen replied pointedly. Yet you consider our defenses threatening while viewing your own as necessary. Chancellor Vexthul studied the human delegation with new interest. You're suggesting that the Council applies different standards to humanity than to established species. I'm stating it as fact, Chen replied. When the siege worlds built their current fleet, did the Council demand technical specifications? When the architects developed their reality-shaping technologies, were they required to share military applications? When the Val-3 perfected their genetic warriors, did anyone question their peaceful intentions? The silence that followed answered her questions more effectively than words could have. Dr. Webb manipulated his display to show comparative military buildups throughout galactic history. Every species represented in this chamber has developed advanced military capabilities. Several have fought wars within the past millennium, yet humanity, which has fought no wars since joining the galactic community, is considered the threat. Because your capabilities are unknown, General Mordek insisted. The other species' military assets are established, documented, understood. And limited, Commander Liu added quietly. That's really what this is about, isn't it? You're not afraid of what we might do. You're afraid of what we might become. The observation struck home. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet the humans' gazes. Chancellor Vexthul's ancient wisdom recognized the truth in Liu's words. Perhaps there is some merit to that concern. Humanity's rapid advancement does create uncertainty about future capabilities. But that uncertainty doesn't justify preemptive action, Captain Chen stated firmly. You cannot wage war against what a species might become rather than what they have done. The Harmonian representative pulsed thoughtfully. The humans make a valid point about proportional response. We have not applied the same scrutiny to other species' development. Because other species develop predictably, Ambassador Zethkar protested. Human advancement follows no pattern we understand. Dr. Webb leaned forward intently. It follows a very clear pattern. We advance rapidly when faced with challenges. The pattern only seems unpredictable if you don't understand the challenges we've faced. He manipulated the display to show Earth's history in more detail. Climate catastrophe drove us to develop advanced environmental technologies. Resource scarcity led to revolutionary manufacturing processes. The threat of nuclear war pushed us to develop space travel. Each challenge created the necessity that drove innovation. And what challenges drive your current advancement? Chancellor Vexthul asked. The human delegation exchanged glances before Captain Chen answered. The challenge of survival in a galaxy that treats rapid advancement as grounds for extinction. The words hung in the air like an accusation. The Council had created the very situation they feared, a species developing advanced capabilities, specifically to defend against the threat of total war. General Mordek's scarred features showed grudging respect. You're developing weapons because we threatened you. We're developing everything, Commander Liu corrected. Weapons, defenses, escape routes, alternative options. When faced with the possibility of species extinction, humans develop contingencies for every scenario, including scenarios where the Council becomes hostile, Dr. Webb added, which, given this conversation, appears to have been prescient planning. The Crix representative clicked her mandibles nervously. Are you saying humans are actively preparing for war with the Council? We're saying humans are actively preparing for survival despite the Council, Captain Chen replied. There's a significant difference. Chancellor Vexthul processed this distinction carefully. His species had served as galactic mediators for millennia, and he recognized the shift in dynamics. You no longer see the Council as a governing authority, do you? We see the Council as a potential threat that must be planned for, Chen answered honestly. When you threaten a species with extinction for the crime of advancement, you lose the moral authority to govern that species. But without Council oversight, how do we ensure galactic stability? The Nethel representative asked, their bioluminescent patterns showing genuine concern. Dr. Webb smiled grimly. The same way humanity ensures stability, through mutual benefit rather than mutual threat. We trade with 17 species not because they're part of the Council, but because trade benefits everyone involved. We've signed defense pacts with 6 species not because Council law requires it, but because mutual defense serves everyone's interests. You're describing anarchy, General Mordak protested. We're describing cooperation, Liu corrected. The difference is that cooperation is voluntary while Council authority is imposed through threat of force. The chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated the implications. The humans weren't just challenging Council authority over their species. They were challenging the fundamental basis of galactic governance. Chancellor Vexthul's ancient mind grappled with the philosophical revolution taking place before him. In 3,000 years of galactic governance, no species had ever questioned the Council's fundamental authority, so directly or effectively. You suggest that voluntary cooperation is superior to enforced order? He said slowly. But what prevents chaos without central authority? Dr. Webb brought up a new display showing human civilization's development. On Earth we tried both approaches. Enforced order through empires and kingdoms, voluntary cooperation through democratic federations and trade alliances. History shows us which approach creates lasting stability. Empires fall, Captain Chen added. They collapse under their own weight, destroyed by the very force they use to maintain control. Cooperative alliances adapt, evolve, and endure because they serve the interests of all participants. Ambassador Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. Pretty philosophy, but what happens when cooperation fails? When conflicts arise that cannot be resolved through mutual benefit? Commander Liu's expression hardened. Then you handle it the way adults handle disagreements, through negotiation, arbitration, and if necessary, separation. What you don't do is threaten extinction because someone won't submit to your authority. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 3 millennia. General Mordak protested. The Council has maintained Council supremacy for 3 millennia. Dr. Webb corrected. There's a difference. Peace enforced through threat of annihilation isn't peace, it's suppression. The Harmonian representative pulsed with troubled colors. But without the Council's oversight, what prevents species from developing weapons that could threaten all life? The same thing that prevents it now, Captain Chen replied. Self-interest and basic survival instinct. No sane species develops weapons that make their galaxy uninhabitable. But what about insane species? The Crix representative asked pointedly. Then you deal with actual threats when they arise, not theoretical threats based on advancement rates, Liu answered. The Council has apparently decided that rapid technological development equals insanity, which is both illogical and dangerous. Chancellor Vexthul leaned forward, his weathered features showing deep concentration. You're asking us to abandon 3,000 years of established governance in favor of an untested philosophy. We're asking you to abandon the threat of genocide as a governance tool, Captain Chen replied sharply. Everything else is negotiable. The directness of her statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Several representatives began speaking at once, but Chancellor Vexithul raised his hand for silence. Let me understand your position clearly, he said to the human delegation. You reject the Council's authority to enforce compliance through total war? Completely, all 3 humans replied simultaneously. And you reject the Council's right to demand technological transparency for galactic security? From unwilling species, yes. Then what form of galactic governance would humanity accept? Dr. Webb looked to his colleagues before answering. A voluntary confederation of equal species, with disputes resolved through arbitration rather than force. Membership based on mutual benefit rather than mandatory compliance. Collective action only when all participants agree, not when the majority imposes its will on the minority. The chamber fell silent as representatives processed this radical restructuring of galactic civilization. General Mordak was the first to speak. Such a system would be chaos. Without enforcement mechanisms, aggressive species would run rampant. Would they? Commander Liu challenged. Name one species that has thrived through aggression without eventually collapsing. Sustainable power comes from providing value to others, not from taking it through force. The Iron Hegemony was extremely aggressive, Ambassador Zethkar pointed out. And where are they now? Dr. Webb asked. Extinct, destroyed by their own aggression when they finally encountered resistance they couldn't overcome. Aggressive species are ultimately self-limiting. The Nethel representative pulsed thoughtfully. But the Council destroyed the Iron Hegemony. Without Council intervention, they might have conquered the galaxy. Or they might have collapsed under their own internal contradictions. Captain Chen replied, "Aggressive expansion creates logistical nightmares, internal resistance, and strategic overextension. Most aggressive empires in human history fell not to external enemies, but to their own unsustainable growth." Chancellor Vexithol studied the humans with newfound respect. "Your species has clearly given this considerable thought." "We've had to," Chen replied grimly. "When faced with potential extinction, you consider every alternative, including alternatives that don't require your submission to Council authority," the Chancellor observed. The three humans exchanged glances, and something passed between them, a decision made without words. Dr. Webb manipulated his display one final time, showing detailed technical specifications that made several representatives gasp in recognition. "These are gravitational engineering designs," Chancellor Vexthol whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. "These could move entire solar systems, or create artificial black holes for waste disposal," Dr. Webb replied calmly, "or generate clean energy on unprecedented scales, or provide transportation methods that make conventional hyperspace travel obsolete." General Mordak stared at the designs in horror. "These weapons could destroy entire sectors of the galaxy." "These tools could reshape the galaxy," Commander Liu corrected. "The difference is in how you choose to use them." "And humanity chooses?" Chancellor Vexthul asked quietly. Captain Chen stood straighter, her voice carrying the weight of her entire species' future. "Humanity chooses to build, not destroy. To explore, not conquer. To create homes among the stars rather than graves in the void." She gestured to the gravitational engineering displays. "These technologies could indeed be weaponized. They could also terraform dead worlds in decades, create stable wormhole networks for peaceful travel, or harvest energy from cosmic phenomena. We choose construction over destruction because destruction serves no useful purpose." Dr. Webb nodded emphatically. "When you possess the power to move stars, the logical question isn't, who can we destroy? But what can we build? Destruction is final and provides no lasting benefit. Creation multiplies possibilities exponentially. But the temptation to use such power for dominance," General Mordak began, "is overcome by the knowledge that dominance is a dead end." Commander Liu interrupted. "Humans learned this lesson the hard way on Earth. Every empire that sought to dominate others eventually collapsed, while cooperative civilizations endured and prospered." The Crick's representative's antennae twitched with nervous energy. "You speak of cooperation, but what if cooperation fails? What if a species refuses to negotiate in good faith? Then you limit your interaction with that species," Captain Chen replied simply. "You don't threaten to exterminate them. You build defenses if necessary, establish boundaries, and focus your energy on relationships that do work." Chancellor Vexthul processed this philosophy carefully. "You would isolate problematic species rather than eliminate them? Unless they pose an immediate existential threat, yes. Isolation allows for the possibility of future change. Extinction eliminates all possibilities forever." The ancient Chancellor's expression showed deep contemplation. In 3,000 years of governance, the Council has never considered such an approach, because the Council has never faced a species with the capability to reject its authority and survive the consequences, Dr. Webb observed. "When your only tool is the threat of annihilation, every problem looks like something that needs to be annihilated." The profound silence that followed was broken by an unexpected source. The Harmonian representative, who had remained largely silent throughout the proceedings, began to pulse with patterns of deep blue contemplation. Perhaps their crystalline form resonated through the translation matrix. "The humans offer us an opportunity to evolve beyond our current limitations." All eyes turned to the Harmonian as they continued. "For 3 millennia we have governed through fear, the fear of what we might do to those who refuse our authority. But fear as a foundation creates a brittle structure. Perhaps it is time to build on something stronger." Ambassador Zethkar's forearms gestured dismissively. "You would abandon proven methods for untested human philosophy?" "I would abandon methods that create the very problems they claim to solve," the Harmonian replied with unexpected firmness. "The Council threatened humanity with extinction. And in response, humanity developed technologies that make such threats meaningless. We created our own enemy through our own actions. The observation sent ripples of uncomfortable recognition through the chamber. Several representatives began murmuring among themselves, and Chancellor Vexthol could see the delicate consensus that had brought them to this point beginning to fracture. The ancient leader of the council faced a decision that would define the next chapter of galactic civilization. Chancellor Vexthol raised his elongated hand, and the chamber fell silent. The weight of 3,000 years of galactic governance rested on his next words. "I call for a recess," he announced. "The council will deliberate on the matters presented here." As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Captain Chen remained standing at the center of the room. Her two companions flanked her, and together they waited as the great hall emptied until only Chancellor Vexthol remained. The ancient architect approached the human delegation, his weathered features showing the strain of the day's revelations. In 3 millennia of governance, no species has ever challenged the council so effectively, he said quietly. "You have not merely defended your actions, you have forced us to examine the very foundations of our authority." Dr. Webb inclined his head respectfully. "That was not our intention, Chancellor. We simply sought to explain our perspective." "Your perspective," Vexthol mused, "includes technologies that could reshape the galaxy and philosophies that could restructure galactic civilization. You realize the implications of what you've revealed today?" Commander Liu nodded grimly. "We realize that we've probably made our situation more dangerous. Species with the power to move stars will be seen as an even greater threat. Or," the Chancellor said slowly, "as the catalyst for evolution that galactic civilization desperately needs." Captain Chen studied the ancient leader carefully. "You're considering their proposal for fundamental change. I'm considering the possibility that humanity represents something unprecedented in galactic history. Species powerful enough to reject our authority, but wise enough to seek cooperation instead of conquest." Vexthol moved to the great windows overlooking the council. Station's vast construction, ships from dozens of species filled the space around them, a testament to the galactic unity the council had fostered. "Tell me honestly," he said without turning around, "what will humanity do if the council chooses to proceed with total war?" The 3 humans exchanged glances. Captain Chen spoke carefully. "We will defend ourselves. We will protect our colonies. We will ensure the survival of our species. Using the technologies you've described, if necessary. And after you've defended yourselves successfully?" The question hung in the air for a long moment before Dr. Webb answered. "We will continue expanding, continue building, continue seeking empty worlds to call home. Nothing will change except that we'll know the council views us as enemies rather than potential allies." Vexthol turned back to face them. "You wouldn't seek revenge? Wouldn't use your victory to establish dominance over the council species?" Commander Liu's expression showed genuine surprise. "Why would we? Revenge serves no practical purpose, and dominance over others isn't our goal. We want to spread across the galaxy and eventually beyond it. Engaging in wars of conquest would delay that goal by centuries. Even after being attacked without provocation?" "Chancellor," Captain Chen said earnestly, "humanity learned long ago that the victor in any war is ultimately everyone who wasn't involved in the fighting. War consumes resources, destroys infrastructure, and kills the people who could be building something useful instead." The ancient architect studied their faces, searching for deception and finding none. 3 hours later, the council reconvened. The chamber was thick with tension as representatives took their seats. Chancellor Vexthol's expression revealed nothing of the private conversation that had taken place. "The council has reached a decision," he announced solemnly. "After careful deliberation, we have concluded that humanity's expansion does not constitute a threat warranting total war." The relief that washed over the human delegation was palpable, but Vexthol wasn't finished. "However, this decision comes with conditions. Humanity will participate in a new framework for galactic governance, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than mandatory compliance." Ambassador Zethkar shot to his feet. "Chancellor, this is unprecedented. You cannot restructure 3,000 years of governance based on one species' demands." "I can and I will," Vexthol replied with quiet authority. "The humans have demonstrated that our current methods create the very threats they seek to prevent. It's time to try something different." General Mordak's scarred features showed deep skepticism. And if this new approach fails? If chaos erupts across the galaxy? Then we will adapt again, the Chancellor replied. But we will not continue down a path that leads inevitably to the destruction of species whose only crime is advancement. The Harmonian representative pulsed with satisfied blue patterns. The Chancellor speaks wisdom. Fear as a foundation has served its purpose, but evolution requires us to build on something stronger. And what exactly are you proposing? The Crick's representative asked. Dr. Webb activated his holographic display one final time, showing a new model of galactic governance. A confederation of willing participants. No species is compelled to join, but those who do agree to certain basic principles. Respect for territorial sovereignty, voluntary arbitration of disputes, collective defense against existential threats, and absolute prohibition of extinction-level weapons. What about enforcement? General Mordak demanded. Through mutual benefit, Captain Chen explained. Species that violate the Confederation's principles lose access to trade networks, technology sharing, and mutual defense agreements. Isolation becomes the consequence for bad behavior, not annihilation, Commander Liu added. And for species that pose genuine existential threats, those developing weapons that could destroy all life, the Confederation would take collective action. But the bar for such action would be much higher than simple rapid advancement. Chancellor Vexthul nodded approvingly. The new framework will be voluntary, but I suspect most species will choose to participate. The benefits of cooperation outweigh the costs of isolation. And if they don't? Ambassador Zethkar asked, still resistant to the change. Then they don't, Vexthul replied simply. Free choice includes the freedom to make poor choices, but most rational species will recognize the advantages of voluntary cooperation over enforced submission. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, the Nethel representative approached the human delegation. Your species has changed the galaxy today. They communicated through pulsing bioluminescent patterns. I hope you understand the responsibility that comes with such change. Captain Chen smiled grimly. We understand. But humanity has always believed that responsibility should be shared, not imposed. The Confederation will succeed or fail based on how well all participants honor their commitments. 6 months later, the First Galactic Confederation Council convened with representatives from 47 species. The humans had kept their word. Their expansion continued, but within the new framework of voluntary cooperation. Trade routes flourished, technology sharing accelerated peaceful development. And for the first time in galactic history, advancement was celebrated rather than feared. But perhaps most importantly, when a new species was discovered developing dangerous gravitational weapons, the Confederation's response was not extinction but education, sharing the hard-learned wisdom of species who had faced similar choices and chosen a different path. The galaxy had learned that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to build something better.